So, a lot of people have been asking me to weigh in on Batman v Superman. And I'd love to. I did see it when it reached the dollar theater. The thing is, a whole lot of people hated this movie, and we've already seen a lot of videos about what's wrong with it. Instead, I am going to be constructive. I'm going to explain some problems with the movie, and then some little solutions of how to fix it. Issue number 1. Henry Cavill. Cavill? I was gonna look this up before I started. I'm gonna look it up right now. Henry Cavill can't act his way out of a soggy paper bag. Henry Cavill did this cute thing on his Instagram. He stood in Times Square under a Batman v Superman poster and waited to see if anybody recognized him, and nobody did. This is supposed to be like a joke on the Clark Kent thing. I'm gonna be real with you, I did not recognize him either. He's literally unrecognizable because he is smiling. I don't know if you noticed, but Superman's face doesn't move. A huge focal point of the movie is all these characters debating whether he's a scary inhuman alien. Every time we see him, his perfect, flawless, alien, symmetrical face is fixed into what I can only describe as a lukewarm scowl. He basically looks like he thought about being mad and then he couldn't remember what that feels like. Now, I'm not stupid. I know they can't recast Superman. They already had a whole movie with him. My solution is to use a little bit of animatronic rigging to attach prosthetic eyebrows onto his face. A team of engineers can maneuver these eyebrows throughout each scene in order to help Superman register different emotions, such as anger, fear, joy, surprise, or sadness. Alternatively, they could just throw in a line to explain his deficiency. Maybe in a scene where he visits home, Ma Kent could say something like, "I know it's been hard for you since that accident on the farm. Y'all ain't never been able to move your face right." Then the audience would just feel bad for Superman. Issue number 2. Almost every line Lex Luthor says is a biblical reference. This movie doesn't really have a thesis statement or go anywhere with it, but it sure wants us to know that Superman is God. This dialogue gets pretty heavy-handed and boring because every time Lex Luthor opens his mouth, he pretty much says the same thing. Zack Snyder seems pretty married to this idea, so I know we can't get rid of it. So I'd like to propose that we instead contain all of this energy to one scene. In my version of the script, I'm going to insert a 30-minute scene in which everything halts so that Lex Luthor can appear on a political podcast, during which he can share all of his God-related Superman theories and metaphors. After that, whenever Lex encounters a character he hasn't seen before, he can simply say, "Did you hear my podcast?" If they say no, he can simply provide them a link to the podcast, and then the scene can continue. Issue number 3. Superman has a poor public image because he never attempts to salvage the situation in any way, and in fact willfully makes it worse. Hey, remember in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, you'd have a scene where a lady's like, "Hey, that guy stole my purse." And then Spider-Man comes and he stops the muggers and he's like, "Here you go, ma'am. I saved your purse." He also protects convenience stores from robbers and saves people from burning buildings. I guess these scenes aren't big and exciting like fighting aliens and punching holes in skyscrapers, but they're kind of the human element to a superhero story. Now, before you point it out to me, I know Superman saves people in BVS. There's this whole creepy montage dedicated to it. Superman saves a girl from a burning building in Mexico, and ominous music plays. Then hundreds of Mexican people reach their hands out to him like he's Jesus. This is a weird situation, so you kind of expect Superman to grimace bashfully, "All in a day's work, ma'am." Instead, he just kind of stands there with that same creepy frown he has for the rest of the film. Then we see him dragging an ocean liner around by its anchor, and then he's saving a family from a flood, and he's still making that same creepy, apathetic face. He seems at best bored, and at worst irritated to be doing this stuff. And his resting pose for his arms is vaguely menacing and confrontational. He's flying in and his fists are clenched at his sides. You see the sun blocked out by his big, scary silhouette. Here comes our hero. So I'm not an expert on Watchmen, I just saw the movie one time, but my impression was that the character of Dr. Manhattan was supposed to be this deconstruction of the idea of Superman. If this type of superhero existed, someone so godlike and powerful, that this would cause them to become sort of detached from humanity in a way that's sad and unnerving. I actually think Dr. Manhattan evoked a little more empathy than this particular version of Superman. And Dr. Manhattan wasn't our main character. I don't know, maybe Zack Snyder should have watched Watchmen. You know what I'm saying? Make some comparisons. Hey, somebody tell him about that movie. I think he'd like it. So anyway, this one's a little harder to fix. Ordinarily, I would say Henry Cavill could just do different things with his face. But we already established that acting is a problem for him. So instead, I think we could easily salvage all these scenes of him saving people by simply putting some Beats by Dre headphones over his ears. Suddenly, his bland frown makes sense because for Superman, this is just a day at the gym. It's kind of rude of him not to take his headphones off when people want to thank him. But now we understand he's not a creepy alien. He's just a fully human douchebag jock. We don't like him, but we understand him. Issue number 4. If Lois Lane was such a smart lady, she wouldn't be here. There isn't really a lot to Lois Lane, but Amy Adams is charismatic enough that she makes her feel like a rounder character than she is. But every scene that Clark has with Lois kind of begs the question of why she's dating this guy. She's supposed to be an intelligent woman, and like I said, he kind of just seems like a creepy alien with no humanity. Maybe she's with him for his looks? Maybe she's just scared to break up with him. Like, I feel like that could go one of two ways. Either he stares at you blankly and does nothing, or he stares at you blankly and then breaks you in half with his hands. Anyway, I feel like a quick fix that would make her feel more real is if every time she entered a scene, she just gave an establishing line telling us how dumb she thinks everything is. Like when Batman's going to kill Superman with his glowing green spear and she runs in, maybe before she begs for Superman's life, she could just go, "This is so dumb." And then she could continue to say, "Please don't kill him," whatever else she wanted to say. That's what I think she would realistically do. Last but not least, issue number 5. Jesse Eisenberg's performance was bad and crazy. I actually love seeing actors throwing everything into a performance. Even if they throw everything in the wrong direction, I actually expected it to be my favorite part of the movie. Then it turned out that Jesse Eisenberg just did a horrible, awful job with no redeeming qualities. I think part of the badness of the Lex Luthor character was ingrained in the script, but he also did a noticeably bad job. It feels like you're watching a school play version of The Dark Knight, and that annoying kid from your AP English class is the Joker. The one who raises his hand to ask a question, but he's just asking the question so the teacher will know he's heard of a thing that's smart. Isn't it true that this thing happened? Yeah, I knew about that thing. It's great that everyone's late to lunch now. I think if the editor had failed to cut the footage at the proper moment, we would have seen Jesse Eisenberg patting himself on the back after every take. Hey, speaking of the Joker, one of the main criticisms was that he felt more like the Joker than Lex Luthor. So, here's my fix. Jesse Eisenberg is the Joker. The Joker's just a rich kid who inherited a company from his dad. He puts on this clown face makeup and his employees are uncomfortable, but they can't say anything. They don't want to get fired. He robs banks and stuff to prove that he's bad and edgy, even though he has no use for the money because he's already wealthy. He actually gets caught all the time because he's not that good at it, but then he just pays off the judge. Now I know what you're all gonna say. They couldn't make this change because Suicide Squad filming was already underway with Jared Leto as the Joker. Well, that's actually not a problem at all. They can just both be the Joker. Both of these characters just kind of had the same idea simultaneously in different cities. Maybe later in the franchise, a legal dispute can lead to one of them changing their name to the Riddler. Same difference, right? So, those are my quick fixes for this one. I know, I should be a real Hollywood script doctor. Anyway, thanks for watching. I can't think of a joke to go out on. New camera, same room. Still didn't make my bed. I literally just have clothes there. Ugh. Better.